I was asked to give my testimony by our pastor, and my very first response, I have to be honest, was to pass it on to someone else. But as God has done so much for me, the least I could do was just to get out of my comfort zone. As many of you know, my name is Janice, and I'm married to John, and we have been blessed with 3 children. And when I think about my testimony, to me it just seems like a normal testimony, if you could call it that. Some people have been saved from a life of addiction, from alcohol, or maybe just a troubled life. Ephesians 2 verse 8 says, "For it is by grace you have been saved, through faith, and this is not from yourselves. It is a gift from God." So my testimony is far from normal. God has done so much for me. I was brought up in a Christian home. My parents took my sisters and myself along to church. We went to Sunday school, to youth fellowship, to Girls' Brigade, to Junior CE, and any missions that were going on in our church. And that was normal for me. And looking back, I'm so blessed and grateful for my parents and their influence in my life. So I knew as a young girl that I needed to be saved. I heard it regularly. My mum and dad were saved, but I knew that that didn't save me. Romans 3 verse 23 says, "For all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God." And I know when I stand before God, he will ask me what I have done with his son. I will have to answer for my own life, just as you will answer for yours. Now, most people have a date and remember the date when they were saved, and I don't, but I do clearly remember that afternoon as a 6 or 7-year-old. I came home from school one day, and I knew that it had been bothering me that if I died, I wouldn't be going to heaven. My mum was baking in the kitchen as usual, and I just told her that I needed to ask Jesus to save me. I just knelt there and then at a chair, and I asked Jesus to forgive me, to come into my heart, and to help me live my life for him. It was a very simple prayer, but I meant it with all my heart. Life carried on as normal for me, and really it didn't change until I was 12 and I was changing schools, that I really had to take my stand. I had very few Christian friends in the circle, my friend circle at school, but my best friend Lisa stood up for me many times, and I know it's hard for you to believe, but I was shy and I liked to stay in the background, and she was the complete opposite of me, but she was a really loyal friend, and I thank God for her. School was hard for me, and there were many things that I had to take a step back from. And I've no doubt school is much more difficult for our young people today, and we really need to remember those young people in prayer. I went to Tech for a year, and then I went on to study in Belfast, where I met no less than 3 Christians in my class. And I was so blessed, after having nobody, I was so blessed to have like-minded friends. I started working, then I met John, I got married, and we started our family. And when I look back on my life, God has been so good because he has kept me, and he has guided me, and he has blessed me. Yes, there have been many valleys along the way. Life has been hard times, but those were the times when I felt especially close to God. Now, when I was thinking about my testimony, there were these 2 words that kept reoccurring in my mind, and those 2 words were peace and plans. Peace and plans, and I'll explain to you. A couple of years ago, as some of you know, John took not well very suddenly, and he was rushed to the Royal in Belfast. And as I sat waiting while he was in the theatre, I know he would say the same. And all I can explain it was this surreal peace, and just a great stillness came over me. Now, if you would have told me that a week before this event had happened, I certainly wouldn't have put those 2 words. I probably would have said I would have been fearful and anxious, and a phrase we use in this part of the world, up to high-do. But it's unexplainable, the peace and the stillness that I felt. And I can only describe it as the peace of God, which passes all understanding. I knew that family, friends, and people back here in church were praying for John just right at that time. God was in control of it all. And we could see, and we still look back on it, just looking back, God's hand was upon every minute of that day. And I can witness that God was there right beside us. And the reason that word came to my mind, maybe you're finding it difficult at the minute. Maybe you're anxious or worried or fearful. And this past year certainly has been challenging, to say the least. And let's face it, you might just be at your wit's end. Can I just say that we don't know what a day brings forth, but we can trust in the one who loves us. Put your trust in him, and he will give you peace. I can put my head on my pillow at night knowing that it is well with my soul. And the other word that came into my mind was plans. I have watched videos by a man called Louis Giglio, and if you have time, check him out on YouTube. He has some great videos, one of them Star Maker, which just astounds me. He also uses a rope illustration. He's on a stage and he's holding a rope, a really long rope. In fact, it's so long it goes off the other side of the stage and we don't see it. But the end he is holding has a red piece of tape around it, and it's no more than an inch long, just a small part at the end. And he goes on to explain that that part represents our life from the day we're born until the day we die, and everything else in between. We spend time planning our education, our career, who we'll marry or not, where we live, where we'll go on holidays, what we'll do when we retire. And I don't know about you, but this past year when I've been off, all I seem to plan is what we're for eating or what somebody else wants to eat next. We plan. There's nothing wrong with that. But back to this rope. Louis explains that the other part of the rope, the rest of it, the part that we don't see that goes on and on, well, that represents eternity, what happens after we die. We spend so much time planning, worrying, focusing on the here and now, that wee red part of the rope. But we neglect to plan for what really matters, eternity. A definition of eternity is infinite or unending time, endless life after death. That's something we really need to plan for, and that's urgent. And with this I'll finish. In Hebrews 9, verse 27 and 28, it says, "It is appointed for man to die once, and after that comes judgment. So Christ, having been offered once to bear the sins of many, will appear a second time, not to deal with sin, but to save those who are eagerly waiting for him." Jesus is coming back again. Are you ready to meet him? And I think this past year has been a sober reminder that life is very brief. You can have that peace, but you have to plan for eternity. You need to put your trust in him, and you need to do it now. Don't put it off. My life is a work in progress. I let God down daily, but he has never let me down. And I know the pastor would only be too delighted and happy to speak with you. If you're troubled, God is talking to you. He's speaking to you. Don't put it off any longer. Thank you.
Oceans rise.